All right. Which of the following statements is true concerning headlight circuits? This is Automotive Electronics Test 8. That's D, all of the above. A, the circuits have totally insulated bulbs and grounded switches. All lamp filaments are connected in parallel. Some circuits use lamps that contain a high beam and a low beam. Right?
Yeah.
One time, let me ask you what you do about this situation. Okay, this is a problem you got to solve. And I used to have this when I worked at Sabine Offshore. I was always having to solve problems. They says, we want lights, headlights, put on this pipe loader so they can see at night. Because the thing ran 24/7. This company, the dockyard, ran 24/7. Now we just worked, 7 to 3:30 there in the shop, but the shop they ran all the time. We got to have lights on this floater. We got to have some good bright, and the loader's got a 24-volt system. All right, now I'm saying, okay, I call the parts house. I said, y'all have any 24-volt seal beam type light bulbs? And they say no. I mean, you can order them, but they're hard to get. And if you ever blow a bulb, you don't have to, it's just a pain. And so I figured out a way to put 12-volt ones on there and make them work. Does anybody know how you would do that?
Why am I like Christmas lights?
He's right.
Build a transformer.
Huh?
Build a transformer.
Well, you're thinking inside the box. But here's the way you do it: B plus, switch, one light, another light, ground. Put them in series. Now both of these bolts are getting half up. They're burning fully on 12 volts because you're splitting the 24 in half. You know what I'm saying? Like Christmas tree lights. That's what you were saying. They're in series. Ta-da. What's the problem with this? You lose one, both of them are out. Boom!
Yeah, Christmas.
If one blows, you lost them both. That's the only problem. But that took care of the deal, I learned more about solving problems working in that job down there with those forklifts and those pipe loaders, and I had cars and trucks to do too, than anything you'd ever seen. I learned some of these guys with the forklifts, these dock workers didn't want to work. They would take the key to the forklift and they would pull it out of the forklift and throw it in the water over the dock. And they say, hey, we can't work. We don't have no key to the forklift.
What?
Yeah, they do stuff like that. So I got this military-style lever switch, that would start, where you didn't have no key. Put that on there. And then I had to put lights on the forklifts because one guy got on a forklift and he drove it down to the other dock to get his coat. He's using it for transportation. And they didn't have no lights on it because we didn't usually drive on the road very much. Mm-hmm. Well, he drove it down to the other dock and it was this Ford Torino ran head on into him going about 80 miles an hour. Boom. Almost killed the guy in the Torino, and the guy on the forklift got off and went back to work. That thing weighed 12,000 pounds. The Torino just bounced. It busted the transmission housing. But I had to put lights on them things and flashers on the back. Well, I had to run them through the headache rack so that they couldn't jerk the wires off and say, hey, the lights don't work, I can't work, this kind of stuff. So I had to always, and also they leave the headlights turned on to kill the battery. They say, the battery's got on the forklift, I can't work. So I put an oil pressure switch on the engine so that when you fired it up, the oil pressure switch would close and the lights would come on. When you shut it off, they'd go off. I just had to constantly work on keeping them things, but that was a problem-solving issue like that.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. But anyway, it was something that we had to come up with all the time. The way it was, we had a. Let me tap this in. Okay, now then, let me move on. Tail lights of a vehicle are dimly illuminated when the brake lights are on. Technician A says this could be caused by a blown fuse. Wait a minute. Okay, technician B says an open ground circuit could cause this problem. Who's right about that?
Open ground system.
Yeah. Now, what is one of the most common problems that you see? That's actually going to be. And believe it or not, both of those guys could be right. Now,
how could a blown fuse do?
Well, if there was a Toyota, and I would have probably answered it the same way you did, but there's a Toyota that we had out here, and the way the things are wired is crazy. They had headlights fuses on those things, a fuse feeding both headlights, right? In other words, a fuse for this headlight and a fuse for that headlight. You could pull one of those fuses, and one light would be dim, and the other one would be normal.
Really?
Yeah. I would try to make a bug. I said, well, I'll just blow a fuse and put it back in here for the students that hunt it. And one headlight would be dim. Well, that was even more fun. Because they would never think of blowing fuse if one headlight's dim. See what I mean? But and occasionally your taillights can work that way too, So usually, I'm going to tell you, 99% of the time, when have you ever seen these taillights where they'll be on kind of crazy, and when you mash the brake, one will go off and the other one will get brighter, and it's kind of hogwash? That's typically because one of the sockets is bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those bad sockets. I mean, you can buy it. Their sockets are kind of expensive.
Well, you can clean them out, and most of the time don't work.
You clean them out, but a lot of the times they just will have to be replaced. I mean, I've had to replace those sockets. So I always suspect your sockets and check them. You know, just hook to your power and ground and see what you got there. You know, a lot of times you'll have a bad ground. Okay, that is, and that's like say lights is not that complicated typically. Remember that I told you the other day how people would mash the brake on some of these cars and the dash lights would come on?
Yep.
Remember what that was?
Yep.
Filament shorted together inside the bulb, yeah. Number 3, which of the following lamp designs have the fastest activation time? Halogen, neon, tungsten, or halide?
Halogen.
That's actually B, neon. Technician A says, composite headlights do not have replaceable bulbs. Composite headlights do not have replaceable bulbs.
Yeah,
That's
explain
some
that.
old style one-piece ones that you didn't replace the bulb in.
Replace the whole headlight.
Replace the whole bulb.
That
Number
old
4.
marriage and stuff, didn't
Well, is that true? Technician B says composite headlights with broken lenses will continue to operate.
Yes.
Actually, let me back up. He's backwards on that. Composite headlights are the ones that are like on our cars nowadays, most of them. Where you got this plastic housing, and then inside of it you got the bulb. So on the old headlights, like on the ones on my yellow Jeep, it's just a glass light. It's just a flat glass light. If you break that one, then typically, you know, they have a composite. They have a light that's got like that one up there. See that light up there?
Yeah.
They have lights like that have a little bitty halogen bulb in them that you can't change the bulb, but it still looks like that and it works like that, but it's got a halogen capsule in it. You got that? So if you break that one, the light will keep burning. But if you've got one of the old kind that's got the naked filament inside there, when you break it, the oxygen gets in there and it burns up. Right?
Vacuum to it or something.
So basically on this number 4 question, what you got is B. See that? So basically, they have replaceable bulbs, and if you break the lens, it'll still operate. Those are the plastic ones, basically, is what they're talking about. You know, we don't think about what we call these darn things. What you do is, when you walk up to the car, you see what you got, and you understand how it works, because you can look at it and tell. So, to assist in headlight aiming, most seal beam lenses are what? Have what? Use what? I'm sorry, number 5.
None of the above.
Aiming pads. Aiming pads. You know those little, well, you can see it on that light there, them 3 little knots that are sticking out from the headlight. Have you ever seen those? That's where you put your headlight aligning thing. That's where they go.
My grandmother's got a headlight that's got a little level on it.
Yeah, they do, and some of them will have that. If it's got the little level on it, it doesn't have the little aiming pads. And some of them, the inside of the light moves when you're aiming it, but the outside does not.
Yeah, I was wondering what those were about. I was out during rollerblading one day when I was a kid, and I went into a car hood to stop myself, and I put my hand right into one of those dad burn things, and it just kind of poked me real good, and I was going fast, you know.
That hurts to think about that. Golly. Yeah.
That little post thing sticks out about that.
Oh yeah, the little thing on the, that's what you're saying. You didn't break the light, but when you went into it, you had that little thing hit your hand. Okay, I see where you're going with that.
Jab real bluntly.
Yeah. The bulb failure warning light of a vehicle illuminated whenever the headlights are turned on. Now let me ask you this, guys. How would you engineer that? Somebody would come to you and they say, I'm going to pay you a lot of money to make me an indicator that will tell me when I've got a blown light.
A Dodge, not a Dodge.
I'd be like, open your
Cavalier
eyes.
has that. I run in that the other day. There was like 5 or 6 lights out. There was a tail light out, a turn signal out, a headlight out, and 2 tag lights. I replaced it everything but the headlights, because I didn't, the headlight worked on dim, but it didn't work on bright.
Yeah.
And I wasn't thinking, so I turned it on bright. So she got a blown bulb. Put that bulb in there and it went off.
Yeah.
What it do was you put it in reverse, and the relay will click 4 or 5 times to check everything. And then
What kind of car was that?
Cavalier.
A Cavalier?
Yeah.
My truck's like that. When I had a blow headlight, my relay over on my turn signals would get louder.
Yeah.
You turn it, click, you put one and you couldn't hear it.
Well, what they also do, and Jeep for the backlights on the Jeep, they had this module. They had a connector back there that went to all the lights. You'd unplug that connector, and there was a module that they had plugged in between there. And it was basically checking, they had a little electronic circuit in there that would check voltage drop across that little shunt that was in that box. And if any of those lights were out, if any of them were out, it would turn on, it would actually send a signal up front, and it would say lamp failure. Now, I will tell you something that's kind of peculiar about some of those Grand Cherokees. You know the lights that are just the little plug-in lights, but they got a fatter head than the regular plug-in lights? I'm talking about the little small 161 volt lights or whatever they were. They got a fatter bulb, and you could put one of those in there that looked like the right one and even shined like the right one, and you couldn't tell the difference, but it had the wrong amount of current draw, and it would cause that lamp out light to come on. So they would come in and I'd say, all the lights are working, the lamp out light's on, and you could pull those lights out and replace them with exactly the bulb that Jeep listed for that vehicle, and that light would go out. It's crazy. You know how you feel like, well, a light will be, it seems like a light bulb will be a light bulb, but it's just not always like that. But anyway, let me, I've sort of got two, let's see, where did I go with here?
6.
The bulb failure warning light of a vehicle illuminated when the headlights are turned on. Technician A says this can be caused by excessive voltage drop on the ground circuit of one of the headlamps. Technician B says excessive resistance in the left low beam circuit could cause the warning light to be on. That's C. Both those guys are right. Technician A says a poor ground in one of the headlamps will cause it to be dim.
That's true.
Technician B says AC generator output that's too high can cause headlights to be brighter than normal. Incidentally, on some of them little Bronco 2s, they used to have a little nondescript vehicle with a bunch of little LEDs on there. And whenever some of the lights were blown, that little LED would come on, right?
Yeah.
But it had resistor wires in the wire harness going to those lights, and it was reading off of those. And so occasionally somebody would scotch lock into the lights in the back and hook up a dadgum trailer, and it would burn up these resistor wires, and all that stuff would go south. So how do you fix that? You don't have to put a $600 wire harness on the truck, right? And so what I did was I took a little gauge system tester that had a little variable resistor in it, like a potentiometer, and I hooked that thing up in that circuit where the burned up wire was, and I turned that knob back and forth on that thing until that light was just right, with the light bulb out. And then I would take the resistor the little variable resistor that I turned, and I'd measure it, and I took and soldered a resistor in there, that same resistance, and actually put heat shrink over it, and ta-da, they had the same thing. But I, slapped their hand for putting scotch locking into the wires and putting a trailer on it. All right, you're supposed to use relays for that. Number, Technician A says a poor ground on one of the headlamps will cause it to be dim. Well, he's right about that. Technician B says AC generator output is too high, can cause headlights to be brighter than normal.
Yes.
Is that what you were talking about earlier?
Yes.
All right, then. You need to check your charging system, don't you?
Then it's reading 14 volts.
What? Well, 14 volts ain't bad. That's about what it's supposed to be. Now, also, if it goes above about 15.5 volts, it'll blow the bulb a lot of times. Or if lightning strikes the truck, it can blow the bulbs too. All right, Technician A says, have you ever seen lightning strike a truck?
Yes, I've seen it bounce across the hood.
Is that good?
No, it's creepy.
Scared you?
All right. Going down the road, wow.
Yeah. Technician A says the headlight switch may be at fault. One of the external parking and headlights turn on. Technician B says it may be caused by a faulty circuit from the battery to the switch. Now listen to what we're saying here. We got to remember these. Technician A says the headlight switch may be at fault when none of the external parking and headlights turn on. If you turn on the lights, headlights come on. None of these external lights come on, right? Technician B says may be caused by a faulty circuit from the battery to the switch. What about it, guys? Talk to me. You know how those things are wired up? All right, Matt, don't go to sleep. You're not in your joint.
See,
Okay, now, watch this. Watch this, guys. This is how this works. Okay? We got a fuse. Right? It's going in here with a switch. We got usually a circuit breaker, or there'll be a couple of fuses or whatever going to your headlights, right? Okay, it'll be a separate circuit going into this light switch to feed your park lights and stuff. Got that? Okay, so you can blow a fuse. Oh, and look at this. Look at this, look at this. Okay. Right here, let me come off of there. You got another circuit going to your dash lights. Why would you do that? Why would you have a circuit coming off here going to your dash lights? If you blow this fuse right here, you're going to lose your dash lights, right?
Yeah.
Now your tail lights, you know,
Still gonna work.
if you want your tail lights to work, because if you don't have your tail lights working, somebody's going to rear end you. Here's another little blurb I want to tell you about real quick that I've said before. The high mount stoplight makes you 40% less likely to get rear-ended. Okay, so if you fail to check somebody's high mount stoplight, they're 40% more likely to get rear-ended because you forgot to check that light. Get where I'm going? Always check the high mount stoplight as an important light. When it came out on cars in 1986, because they found out in studies, the first time I saw one of those, I said, well, that's a cool light. I wonder what
Look
it's
down.
Huh?
Look like out and up.
I'm going to have to use a different marker because I dropped my black one and it went under the bench. Okay. Anyway, you can have a separate, you're going to have a separate circuit. I tell you something else that happens. Anytime I see one that these lights aren't working, and sometimes you'll put a fuse in there and the fuse ain't blown. So you take the headlight switch fuse and it has destroyed, thank you, sir, and it has destroyed the switch. It's burned it up. So if your switch is burned up, what are you thinking of? And I'm talking about the connector and everything. It's all melted down, burned up.
Getting too much current.
Yeah, and so then you back off and look and you see that somebody has got running board lights. They've installed aftermarket clearance lights. They got all kinds of fancy other lights. And they just scotch locked into a little 22 gauge brown wire that was going back to the tail lights to fire all this stuff up. And that's too much current. That little switch connector was not designed to carry all of that because they figured, well, all we need, because right now they're trying to make everything as light as they can, so they put the smallest wires they can put on there and all that. So what do you need to do if you want to run that? If I wanted to do that, like let's say that you got a really good customer and he comes in and he's somebody that you really like, but maybe some other aftermarket outfit put these on here and they burned up the headlight switch. Well, you got to put the headlight switch connector, you got to put a new headlight switch on it.
Run a bigger gauge wire.
And no, don't run a bigger gauge wire. What do you do?
Wires.
Huh?
Run more wires.
Don't run more wires. I need to do this. Like this. Okay, he's scotch locked in right here to feed his bulbs, right? And he's feeding all these other lights. All these other lights.
All right.
And that has actually destroyed this switch right up here.
Before you give the answer, okay, what was the question?
The question is, he's got too many lights. See, this is going back to your existing tail lights, and it's designed to pull just those. He's tied into that, and he's burning all kinds of other lights with this crap. And now this has caused too much current to be pulled here. It's, foul this switch up, because this switch was set up to pull a little 22 gauge wire, which is very small, and just the tail lights is all it's supposed to burn. Now he's got all this other crud on, and all the time he's driving around burning them, and this thing gets hotter and hotter and hotter, and all of a sudden it starts to oxidize and it burns up, and you wind up with a fried switch, and now nothing works. You got power coming in, but there ain't none coming out. When you unplug it, you say, oh crap, no wonder. So what's the answer to this problem?
Take all this off, run it straight from the battery, run all those lights straight from the battery. Bam.
Relay.
Really?
Jerry Ricky.
Say that.
There ain't no Jerry Rig. We doing re-engineering.
All right, what we're going to do here, this is how we're going to do this. Watch. We still got these lights here, and these lights right here are all grounded, right? They're parallel. They're running parallel. Every light's got its own ground and all that kind of stuff. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to wire it up so that our relay is carrying the lights. We're going to pull this directly from B+, but we're going to put a fuse in there. A separate fuse of our own, putting like an inline fuse or something like that, All right, now watch this. Watch. Now we're going to come off here. We're going to go to here, right?
I suppose it's closed.
So this turns on the relay. The relay's carrying the load.
Okay.
Very easy. Very easy, very simple. Some of the motorhomes that I used to see would come in, and it had burned up the doggone little plastic stoplight switch that they put on there when they built the motorhome.
What'd you work on motorhomes at?
Huh? Over at the Ford place, they bring them in there to work on them. And it was a pain. But motorhomes were, they pay you $3 an hour extra to work on motorhomes because a lot of the mechanics said, if you keep bringing motorhomes in here, we're going to quit. We hate them doggone things. Well, I would see them, the stoplights wouldn't work. And I go up and under the stoplight switch burnt slam up. And so, no, you replace it. Well, they actually came out with a switch that was slightly better, more robust. But that little plastic plunger switch with the two terminals, it wasn't that good. I'd put one of these on there. I had a little connector that would plug in here, and I'd mount a little relay with an ear on it up there. And I would come up here, and what I would do is I'd let the power that was coming from into the switch feed the common terminal. and then I would go from the normally open terminal to the brake lights. And then I would have the switch power up. I'd ground one of the coil terminals, let the switch power up this one, click, and that relay would click every time you hit the brake, but you'd have good strong juice going back to your terminal, and this relay can carry those lights. That little switch was not able to. That's what relays are all about, guys. It's extremely important that you understand that. Matter of fact, I'm past due. Haven't been everybody wired that board up over here. All right.
So what's answer number 8?
Huh?
What's the answer?
Number 8.
The answer's number.
What is it? Answer number C. Both of them.
Do plumbing in a mobile home that you work on and on. You're at do plumbing in one.
No, we never did any plumbing, and we didn't do any porta potty stuff or nothing like that. Basically, what we were working on was stuff that was related to the engine, and sometimes they would have some body circuits like your lights and whatnot. We'd work on, and wipers were crazy on those things. Got to have a special box on them. And one guy, we absolutely could not get the electronic box to make his wipers work. Motorhome manufacturer didn't make it anymore, so he just put a bunch of Rain-X on the windshield and drove it without wiper. Yeah.
That's what one of my buddies did for prom, because his car he took wasn't ready, so he just poured Rain-X all over it.
Well, that works. I mean, that Rain-X, it just beads up and rolls off. You ever use that stuff? It's incredible. All right. Number 9. Which of the following is not true of automatic headlamp systems? They can turn the headlamps on and off. They can control high and low beam switching. They're easily repaired when defective. They can be adjusted to fit various conditions. Number 9. That's C. They can be easily repaired when defective. I had a 67 Chrysler New Yorker one time that had automatic bright dim on it. Had a little ray gun looking thing on the dash. And I just had got that car. Just built a motor on it and was driving it home. And I met this big truck on Dale County 1. And those lights went bright dim, bright dim, bright dim, off. Trucks coming by, on the road. And I found out how to just recuperate that thing. I was not putting up with that hard wash. And that was no joke. Yeah. I was working at a gas station, and my dad traded for that car because he had a 67, 66 Chrysler that my mama used to drive. So a 67 Chrysler, this black one, was real cool. He bought it because it wouldn't start because somebody had poured gas treatment in the oil. And after that, it washed all of the oil off the wrist pins and everything because of the gas treatment. And when she tried to start it, it go. It was just real hard to bend the, And so I took the motor all to pieces at the gas station, put it in one of them stalls in there, and sent those pistons up there. And Cliff pushed pressed the wrist pins out and oiled them, pushed them back in there, and got it where it spin over again. I put, rings and bearings and all that nonsense. And I drove that car for a long time, and it would forevermore fly. It had a 440 in it. What?
In the gas station right there.
Huh?
In the gas station.
They poured. Yeah. Well, what happened was she told some filling station attendant at another gas station to pour. That's what she told my dad when he traded for it, to pour oil treatment in it, and he just went and grabbed something that said STP on it and glugged it into the oil. She didn't know what he had done until she got the next morning when she went to start the car. It was forget it. It's over. It ain't starting. And we had to, like I say, anyway. I think that was like a second or third motor I had ever rebuilt, ever. But first V8. Okay, number 10. Excuse me, yeah. How is a 3-bulb tail light system wired?
C.
A, it has a common brake turn signal bulb. B, it uses separate bulbs for turn signals and brake lights. C, all tail lights are wired in series. Or D, it uses side markers that flash in the rear. That's B. Separate bulbs for turn signals and brake lights. Oh, goodness. If I'm going to wire up a trailer on that, I'm going to do it the right way. How am I going to make this happen?
A trailer?
Huh?
A trailer?
Like a trailer's got a red light on both sides in the back, and they double its tail light stop. Well, they triple its tail light, stop lights, and brake lights. But now my Ranger out here has got orange turn signals and red stop lights and tail lights. So how am I going to fix that so that whenever I'm pulling my boat, when I mash the brake, or when I turn on the orange turn signal, one of these lights back here is going to flash? You can't. How are you going to fix that?
Or the one
Follow the
bulb inside
instructions.
the lens.
Huh?
Or the one bulb inside the lens thing.
Well, you could actually put some different bulb, some additional lights on the back of the trailer, but something else you can do, they make this little block that you can buy at the Parks House. It's for that stuff. And you hook it up, hook everything going up in one side of it, and out of the back comes the little trailer lights. That's fine, but those little things won't pull a whole lot of current, and they like to go bad. So you put relays, pull battery from the front of the common, let the wire just, coming off of them, operate the relays, and let the wire go from there. You got 3 relays. You got one for tail lights. I like to do one for tail lights and one for turn signals. Sometimes even on the factory vehicle, the turn signals, they say, well, they're not going to be burning very long anyway. But I don't like that because sometimes you may be in a situation where the brake lights are on for a long time.
Hey, Woody.
Yeah.
There's this dude I was behind him last night. He goes somewhere, he'd push his brakes and all those lights reflect on his tail on his trailer.
Flashing?
Yeah, the flash. Oh, the flash.
Yeah.
His turn signals don't work, but when he gets a stop, it starts flashing. Like the turn signal and the brake light.
Instantly flash?
Yeah, they just
It probably was wired up that way. They just want to get your attention. You know what I mean? Some of them have the doggone high mount stoplight where it will flash. Have you noticed that? When somebody mashes the brake, it'll flash the high mount stoplight. That's so you can say, hey, 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 hey,
That's one thing. You get the pigtail and all that, but the truck's just a steady light.
Uh-huh.
But your trailer's flashing.
Yeah, there was something between there, and if it was a real rhythmic flashing, it probably wasn't a loose connection. It was something they wired up to do that.
Just like
Yeah, it sounds to me like he had something wired up to make it do that, to get your attention,
if you
Number
burn
11.
for a second and stop, it burn for another second, it go off, and burn another.
Yep. The only other thing that might have caused that is if something was getting hot and acting like a turn signal. Sometimes that'll happen. I've seen that before. Now, our technician A says the flasher uses a bimetallic strip, open and close the turn signal circuit. The old kind of flasher did. Actually, they did. And so A is the right answer, but technician B says the dimmer switch is part of the turn signal circuit. No, it's not. Now, this right here is a flasher off of a 2000 Jeep. Look at all them wires. Every single light on every corner of that Jeep, as far as turn signals goes, has a separate wire feeding it off this flasher.
That's a lot of cool.
Isn't that silly? All right, now, this is another flasher right here. This is another flasher. It looks like a regular relay, only it's bigger. They make it bigger where it won't, so that it won't fit where a regular relay goes. Because that's not a relay. It looks like a relay, but it's actually a turn signal flasher. See, some of them will be gray, some of them will be blue. Jeep Grand Cherokees, like mine, have got a relay. I've got one like that, and there's variations of flashers. This guy right here that wrote this test is talking about that little round silver can. When we're talking about a bimetallic strip has got 2 pieces of metal that are married to one another that expand and contract at the same rate with heat, at different rates with heat. And so if they're married together, they're actually bonded together so they can't. And what happens is when the current flows through that, it gets hot and it changes. And then it cools off real fast and it goes back and forth. It's going ding, 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 ding. That's what it's doing inside that flasher. Just like that. Bimetal, the old thermostats. You ever seen somebody pull an old air conditioning thermostat and it's got a spiral spring with some mercury bulbs hooked to it? That's bimetal. And what happens is the temperature changes, it actually opens and closes. Like I said, they use bimetal for on the front of these fans under these cooling fans that have the fan clutch on them. They'll have a bimetal strip on those that are changing the inside of that fan clutch to give you more, as heat comes through the radiator, to give you more resistance in the turn of that fan.
I think I've got number 12.
Number 12, the right headlight does not function on either high or low beam. Technician A says this would be caused by an open ground on the right side. That's right. Technician B says the B plus to the dimmer switch might be open. Whoa. Who is correct? Well, it feeds both of them.
I thought it was a series. If the ground's not there, wouldn't both of them not be working?
They're not in series.
Right. They're not.
Now, the ones that I wired up on the 24-volt system were, but on a regular car, they're not in series.
Okay.
Now, a lot of cars, they've got a different bulb for each, a different fuse for each headlight, or they'll have a headlight. A lot of the older cars had circuit breakers in the headlight switch. Listen to this, guys. Somebody says, I drive my car a ways, and all of a sudden, the headlight starts flashing off and on randomly. Just off on, off on. And so, if you look at your wiring schematic, it'll show you the guts of that headlight switch, and you'll see the symbol in there for a circuit breaker that looks like that inside the headlight switch. When that circuit breaker wears out, see?
Let's see.
Yeah, so that was number 13. Excessive resistance in the common portion of the circuit cause them to come on. Low AC generator output could cause dim headlights too. So that is C. Number 14. Technician A says the flasher is at fault when the turn signals work in one direction, but the indicator light stays on steadily in the other direction. What does that mean?
I think it's B.
Okay, that needs to be clarified. On the flasher that came out, flashers, the little round flashers, have got various different bulbs that they're rated for. And they put those in there so that they have to have a certain amount of resistance, of current flow for them to work. So if one of your bulbs blows, there's not enough current flow, the flasher doesn't work, the little bimetal strip just stays there. But the flasher you buy at the parts house to replace it will flash no matter how many bulbs are there. The little plastic flashers that you see, they'll only flash if you got the right amount of bulbs hooked to them. The plastic, the other one will. Now, what do the newer lights do? What do the new flashers do, the newer ones? They flash faster. Ding, 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 ding. Like if you see them flashing faster, it means you got a blown bulb on them.
The ones on my dually flash faster, but it's intermittent now. Sometimes it'll flash faster, and sometimes it won't.
When it's flashing faster, that means that there's not enough current being drawn, and that smart circuit inside that flasher is doing that. It's flashing it faster because it's not seeing enough current flow. It may be that you've got a light that's working, but it's got enough of a bad connection where it's just not drawing enough current.
I left blinker twice as fast as the right blinker.
Yeah, you need to see if you've got one blown bulb on the back or the front one.
My brother.
Huh?
My brother, every time he had to use his blinker, he'd have to go.
Yeah, real.
He wouldn't stay and it wouldn't go. Ting, 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 ting.
Okay, guys, we're almost done here. Before y'all turn into a bunch of skeletons, okay. Number 14 is actually one we just got through. That's B.
15 is.
Now, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something I've seen on that. You have an idea that you know what you're doing sometimes, and you'll see something that just blows you out of the water. There was a Dodge pickup, 80 model, brown, step side, straight six engine in it that we had at Sabine Offshore. And it had this little round flasher in it. And the turn signals on one side would not flash, but on the other side they would. And the bulbs were put, huh?
Part of it was burnt up.
What?
The flasher. Part of it was burnt up.
The flasher. Well, actually, it only had a little round flasher. I just replaced the flasher, and it took care of the problem. I never would have thought that, but it did. So sometimes you'll get challenged. If somebody comes to you, all bets are off. Anything's possible. So just make sure that you say, well, you probably got this, but you need to look. It ain't hard to replace a flasher. One time I pulled a flasher out of one, and I was going to throw it at the trash can. And right over here close to the trash can, Donnie was sitting here at the computer looking at something. And the trash can's right next to him. I said, I'm going to throw this over there, and I hope I don't hit Donnie in the back of the head with it. I really was hoping I wouldn't, but my eye shifted to his head, and it's like hitting your finger with a hammer. My aim shifted, and it fell, boom, right off the back of his head. And I was throwing it at the trash can. I really was. And I had to say, Donnie, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hit you with the flasher. Technician A says when replaced, which of the following is not used to control the brightness of the instrument panel lamps?
A.
Dodge.
C.
Actually, rheostats are like a potentiometer, sort of, except they carry a load. Technician A says, Camaro has got a little transistor that's fed by a potentiometer that does that. So basically, the more current you feed into the base, the more current goes through the emitter and the collector. It's interesting how they do that. And they burn out. So if you see a Camaro that doesn't have dash lights, then that little transistor can cause that, and they sell those at the parts house. Technician A says when replacing a composite headlight bulb, it's okay to touch the glass envelope with your fingers. Ha ha, very funny. Technician B says when replacing a composite headlight bulb, extreme care must be taken so as not to touch the glass envelope with your fingers. That ain't going to be both A and B. It's going to be one or the other. That's a poorly written question. That is actually going to be number 16 is B. 17A. 17 is going to be A. Technician A says diodes are used in the center high mount stoplight for proper turn signal operation. Well, yeah, yes and no. I will tell you what happens in most of those. They have that thing wired directly. Let me ask you what happens here. Let's say that I've got red taillight stoplights on both sides. Let's say that when I hit the brake, the high mount stoplight comes on, but the other brake lights don't work. What's wrong with it? You're going to see it. You're going to see it, boy. You better be able to come up with an answer here. You know the bulbs are good. You mash the brakes. These lights down here don't work. The high mount stoplight does. How many of you know that on the ones where the tail lights and where the same filament's used for stoplights and turn signals, that the turn signals are wired, that the stoplights are wired through the turn signal switch. Got it? You understand what I'm saying? The stoplights are wired through the turn signal switch on one that's got using the same bulb for stop and turn. So if the turn signal switch is bad, see, the high mount stoplight's got no reason to go through the turn signal switch, does it? If it burns but they don't, the turn signal switch, combination switch, if you will. 13K359, I think, is the basic part number on Ford. Okay, now then.
18 is B.
What?
It's big West.
18 is B. Gotta go lamps. The last one.
17 is A. So let's see.
18 is B.
18 would be B. What are the only white lamps allowed on the rear of a car? Backup lamps. Okay. And license plate lamps. Technician A says LED brake light illumination time is much more than conventional. Well, no, it lights up instantly. Technician B says LED lighting has an extended lifespan compared to standard bulbs. Number 19 is actually when we see both of those guys. I told you one time, though, how the guy that was working on this cruise control in his Ford Focus, the cruise control absolutely would not work. Because the cruise control is looking for a ground coming through the light bulbs, the bulbs and the brake lights. Somebody had put LED lights on the back of this Ford Focus. There was not enough of a ground coming to that module. He lost his cruise control when he put the LED lights on the Focus. Now, what do you do about that?
Take it out.
You don't do nothing to alter anything that's got to do with cruise control, ever. You leave cruise control alone. You leave airbags alone. Don't change the wiring on airbags. Don't change the wiring on cruise controls, because you're liable for anything bad that happens if you do. Right?
Doesn't cruise control off a vacuum?
Yeah, not all. Most of them don't run off vacuum now. But even the ones that run off vacuum had an electric box that operate that. And if it's looking for a ground coming through those stoplight bulbs, you mash that stoplights. If you mash the brake, the ground goes away. It's not looking for power. They're looking for ground. Both the stoplight bulbs are blown. You got no cruise. But when he put those LED lights on there, what we had to tell him was the only way you're going to get cruise control back is put the original lights back on it. And he didn't like that because he liked his LED lights. So you got your choice. You can have your LED lights in the back, or you can have cruise. Now, there's ways that you can jack around with that circuit and make it work, but you don't do that with cruise. If it's your car, you can do it. I guess you probably shouldn't. But anyway.
Won't your urethane lights do the same thing?
Huh? I don't know how much current those pull, actually. That's a good question. Technician A says, okay, excuse me, number 20, which of the following best describes the function of the bi-xenon system? Les? I meant Wes, not Les. What is a bi-xenon system?
Double.
Number 20, that's a D. None of the above. None of the above. And then they've got high intensity discharge lights, you know. All right. Now then, look at these. Let's look right quick at these worksheets. And